Okay, we are recording. So welcome everyone to the Women's Circle for Hey for the AriZal's Yahrzeit special Women's Circle. So I love starting off every Women's Circle with a special prayer, and I asked Tali Katz, who actually runs a I wonder, are you still doing this, Tali? A prayer circle, like a Tehillim circle? She's still doing it. Amazing.
My Tehillim circle that started March 10th, 2020. Yes.
You started by COVID, right? So, and I actually
started right at the.
So I've had the pleasure of really being on, and yeah. So Tali, explains a little bit to everyone about what you do. Maybe you could put your email in there. Maybe other people would want to join, and she's going to open up with a special.
So we have a Tehillim group that we do specific psalms that we start with Psalm 13, and there are a total of about 12 psalms that we do that, and we're specifically for healing, not for parnasa, but specifically for healing. We started on March 20th in 2020. I was doing it 6 days a week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And now we're doing it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So we have people from all over the country and also out of the country. And I chant, and many of the Tehillim I chant, and some I have written. And so by way of my introduction, I'm very thrilled when Miriam texted me and asked me this morning as I was sitting in a doctor's office if I would do this. And I said, if I get home and if I'm up to it, and Baruch Hashem, I'm feeling better at the moment, take day by day. And so I want to share with you, and I want to say I'm very honored. I'm looking over at my candle, Yahrzeit candle that I lit last night for the Ari, plus studied with Daniel Matt, my Zohar class. And to be, this is such a gift for me to be able to know that Miriam is in Tzfat. And I knew Miriam from Florida. And so it's a lot of years. And Rivka, I'd like to have you also here, who I knew from Baltimore. So it's all full circle. And here I am in Florida. So I'm going to do combine two that I really love of mine. One is from, it's the last pasuk from Psalm Yod Gimel 13, Ashira Hashem ki gamal alai. And the other one, which is also related to God loving Torah and all day, it is my meditation, and Hashem, the first one, dealing kindly with me. And that's, it's pasuk Sadak Zion 97. So I'll start off with Ashira Hashem ki gamal alai. Ashira Hashem ki gamal alai. Ashira Hashem, Ashira Hashem ki gamal alai. Mahavti Toratecha Kol hayom hi sichati. Mahavti Toratecha Kol hayom hi sichati. Mahavti Toratecha Kol hayom hi sichati. Mahavti Toratecha Kol hayom hi sichati.
Amen. Beautiful. Wow. Thank you. That definitely set a beautiful opening to bring Hashem in. So thank you so much for that, Tali. So let's get started, ladies. So today I want to, what we're going to do today is we're going to share a teaching of the AriZal on the feminine, on really the rise of the feminine. And what we're going to do is I'm going to share this teaching. It's actually, I really got most of this from a book from Sari Yehudit Schneider on the Kabbalistic essence of the masculine and feminine. But what I'm going to do after that is we're going to really make it very practical. So I'm going to bring it down really according to Chassidus, which is how we make it really practical in our lives. Again, like a lot of teachings of Kabbalah could be very, what could seem very esoteric, very out there. But the purpose is always to really bring it down and how do we use it? How do we live it? And especially when we're speaking about the rise of the feminine, it's like, how do us as women now step into that? You know, it's great to say the feminine is rising, but if we don't really understand what our gifts are and how we really facilitate this process, then it's a great teaching. But again, it's about bringing it home and bringing it and making it real for us. So first, I want to give a little bit of an introduction to today's day, the yahrzeit of the AriZal. So who was the AriZal? The AriZal, his name is Rabbi Yitzchak, Isaac Yitzchak Luria, or the Ari, he's known as, which is Elokai the Rabbi Yitzchak. Elokai meaning the God. He was like such a holy figure. You know, I don't know if there's anyone else that's actually referred to like that. And he's really considered one of the most foremost Kabbalists after Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was the author of the Zohar. Now, what did he specifically do is he took the Zohar, which is very deep esoteric teachings with, you and I would open it up, anyone really would open it up, and it's very hard to really understand it at all. And the AriZal really took the teachings of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and made them very tangible, very accessible to us. So in other words, so that we can really understand them in a much more accessible way. Now, again, Chassidus took these teachings and brought it down even more in a way that's practical to us. But the AriZal, he actually lived very interestingly in Egypt for many of his early years, where he was very much secluded in Egypt, spent much time in solitude, and he really spent time studying the Zohar there. And it said that he reached a point in Egypt of such a high level of divine prophecy, really it says, that Elijah the prophet actually came and studied with him. And Elijah specifically told him to leave Egypt and to come to Tzfat, the city of Kabbalah. And when he came to Tzfat, he came in one of the last years that the Ramak, Rav Moshe Cordovero, was alive, and he was one of his foremost students. And when he passed away, when the Ramak passed away, the AriZal really took over for him. Now, you'd be shocked to know, but the AriZal actually only lived for 38 years, right? All these amazing teachings that we have of the AriZal are really only from 38 years of his life. And most of the teachings, I think actually maybe even all of the teachings, were not actually even recorded by the AriZal, but most of them were recorded actually by Rabbi Chaim Vital, who was his foremost student, and who actually took over for him after his passing. So that's really like, it's a really incredible thing. I think he was actually only in Tzfat, if I'm correct, for like 3 years. And yet anyone who lives in Tzfat, I mean, some people here have been, you know, Olivia and many others who've been through Tzfat, know that like the AriZal is like, Tzfat is the city of the Ari, you know, and again, really his influence and his power was so strong considering he was only here for such a short time. So what we're going to discuss today is the rise of the feminine as taught by the AriZal, the rise of the feminine in the footsteps of Mashiach. And we're going to bring this down into what is called Malchut. Malchut is really the essence of the feminine. Now, before we go into the teaching of the AriZal, I just want to give a little bit of background for some people who are not familiar with this idea of like, what is Malchut in connection to the Sphero? So the Sphero, again, is a concept, a very a Kabbalistic concept. And actually right behind me, I have this Sphero chart, the tree of life, also known as. But the Sphero really are when God wanted, who's infinite, right? God is completely infinite, completely spiritual, wanted to create a finite world. What did he have to do? He had to condense his infinite light through what's called 10 channels or 10 attributes of divine flow, which are known as the Sphirot, which take this infinite light of God, right, which is completely something that we can't even contain, and bring it down into the finite creation. And again, these are called the divine attributes because they're ways for us to be able to really connect to God and to have a relationship for God. So example, the attributes are chesed, kindness, gvura, severity, compassion, endurance, netzach, gratitude, acknowledgement, humility. All these are ways, because again, God, when he created this world, he wanted us finite individuals to have a very deep and intimate connection and relationship with him. So we had to condense his light in a way through these attributes that we would be able to be partners with him in creation and have this relationship with him. So that's really the Sphero in a nutshell. I mean, many of you here actually were on the Sphero course. And I just brought down what we really is taught in like a series of 8 classes and just condense this very briefly. But that's it in a nutshell. And when it speaks about the Sphero, these divine attributes, 7 of them are called the Zera Anpin, and they're considered to be the emotional Sphero, and they're actually considered masculine, okay? Now, the final chain of the Spherotic tree, which we have right over here, is considered Malchut, which is the feminine of the Sphero. Okay, Malchut, as we could see, it's like the receiver. It's this cup that holds all of this light of Hashem and brought this light down into the finite creation. Okay, now Malchut, again, is the feminine of the Sphirot. And what we're going to see right now is that not only does Malchut represent the feminine, but it also represents the time period that we're in right now and the era of Mashiach. Because really, what is this idea of Mashiach? The idea of Mashiach is we're going to reveal, Malchut is this final culmination, the here and now, the actual culmination of this whole process. And the whole purpose that God created the world is for this culmination and this revelation, the full complete revelation of Mashiach. So the feminine, again, holds space for this idea of Malchut, of Mashiach, for this revelation of his purpose, really of creating the entire world, which is really for Mashiach. That was God's intent initially in creating the world. Now, the Rambam, Maimonides, explains that there are 3 phases in the 6,000 years of history that actually parallel the 6 days of creation, okay? Now he says that the first 2,000 years were called the period of Tohu. Tohu literally means chaos, okay? Now, just to bring you into content, like the year 2448 was actually the year that we came out of Egypt. And Abraham didn't actually come into the scene until the 3rd millennium. So again, this whole first 2,000 years of history, which is a very large chunk of history, was just a period of chaos. The second era, the second 2,000 years of history are called the Era of Tikkun, or Torah, because what was the Torah brought to the world? To bring Tikkun, to bring rectification to the world. Now, the last 2,000 years of history are actually called the Era of Mashiach, okay? But yet, Mashiach is supposed to be coming in the 7th millennium, but yet this whole 2,000-year chunk of history that we're in right now is called the Era of Mashiach. So what was the Rambam indicating by saying that this whole 2,000 year of time of history is called the Era of Mashiach is that there's really what's called a backlighting of a Messianic light that's really trickling in right now, right? In Kabbalah, it's called Or Choser, this reflective light. So this light of Mashiach is really in the world right now. It's backlighting into the world. And that's why, again, I mean, the Lubavitcher Rebbe especially was so saying that Mashiach's here already. It's about us opening up our eyes, right? It's like we're in the era of Mashiach. It's here. It's just about us bringing consciousness to it. Now, again, Mashiach is Malchut, is the feminine, and the time, so this whole time period that we're in history right now is really a very feminine era. The feminine really holds space for this reality, this idea of Mashiach. So when we really understand Malchut, when we understand the feminine, we're really understanding not only where we're going towards the time of Mashiach, but we're also understanding the time period that we're in right now. And we're really understanding in a much deeper way, what is our avoda? What is the work of the time period that we're in right now? If this is the era of the feminine, and the feminine energy is so strong and palpable right now that if we really want to understand how to tap into the energy that's here right now, we really have to understand what is the feminine. Okay, and that's really what we're going to get into in this class. Now, again, what is the whole idea even of the redemption of Mashiach? It's that the era of the redemption is where we're going to redeem the Shekhinah, God's presence. God's presence right now is in exile, right? There's concealment. We don't see Hashem's light. So in order for, if we women, as the feminine, if we come out of our exiles, meaning understanding our gifts, understanding our potential, understanding really who we are at the core of who we are, then what do? We facilitate the redeeming of the Shekhinah. We are partners with Hashem in doing that work. Now, another really important thing to understand here is when we talk about the feminine, we're not just talking about gender, meaning masculine and feminine, because again, everything in the world is created through the process of the Sphero. So everything in the world has masculine components and has feminine components. And even us, ourselves, we have masculine parts of ourselves and feminine parts of ourselves. All women, all men. Men have masculine parts of themselves and feminine parts of themselves. And some women could actually be more masculine in their energy, right? And some men are actually more feminine in their energy. It really depends on each person's unique soul. So again, when we speak about, I want to make this very clear, it's a very important point to understand here. When we talk about feminine and masculine, we're not necessarily talking about gender. We're really talking about, the concept of what does masculinity represent and what does really femininity represent in the world, okay? Now I want to get into, and another point that I really want to speak about in this idea is also, and I think this is a very, very important point, because for many, many, many years, like especially in the 70s, early 80s, what happened was there was this whole feminist movement really in the world, right? There was that was the big topic, the big hot topic was feminism. Now I feel like it's less, I mean, it's still hot, but it's less spoken about, right? And really, what is this idea of femininity? Now, a lot of people could think about it as maybe that was a negative thing, or maybe some people think it was positive, but there could be almost like a negative connotation to it. But again, what is this, the sign of this feminist movement was the idea that, again, the feminine is rising. If the feminine is rising, that means that this feminine energy was coming up in the world. As we're getting closer and closer to Mashiach, the idea of the feminine was being highlighted in the world. And the feminist movement was really picking up on that. But what happened, there's an idea also spoken about in Kabbalah, is that there's klipa kadma lepri, that the klipa, the shell, the husk, comes before the pri, the fruit. Okay, so the fruit really is the essence, the core, really, which is the truth, which is the feminine is rising, right? And we have to tap into feminine energy, we have to tap into feminine potential. But what happened, there was you could say a klipa, forces from the other side that actually were overtaking femininity. But really, really in its essence, in its core, it was actually a very good thing, because again, it was just a reflection of really the spiritual dimension that the feminine was rising. Now, another point that I want to say, I hope this may be a little bit, I don't want to say controversial, but it's whatever. It's not something that I've ever read anywhere, but I've ever heard said. But I really feel like now in the world, we're speaking less about feminism, but really more about this idea that of no gender, right? Of being genderless. Okay. Now, again, where does that come from? So this is just me. This is nothing that I read anywhere, but I really have a hunch that what does it mean when Mashiach comes? It says that godliness, the Yud Kei Vav Kei aspect of Hashem, is going to be in complete revelation. The Yud Kei Vav Kei is the tetragrammaton name of God, which represents both the feminine and the masculine. We have the Yud K is the masculine, and the Vav He is actually, I'm sorry, the Yud is the Chachma, which is the masculine. The He, the second He, is considered Bina, which is the daughter, which is feminine. The Vav is the 7 midot, the Zera Anpin, which are the sun, which is masculine, and the final He is Malchus, which is the feminine. So again, I feel there's an idea in the world right now where, again, we're so close to the coming of Mashiach that, again, this feminine and masculine energies in the world, the feminine is rising, which means that the masculine and feminine energies of the world are very, very, very strong. They're almost parallel to each other. And I feel, again, that this is why in the world we're seeing, again, this klipa, this impure manifestation of gender as being really genderless, a reflection of, again, this Yud Kei Vav Kei, name of God, which is about to burst forth, this huge light of Hashem, which represents masculine and feminine energies in its full force, is about to be birthed into the world. So this is, again, just my feeling on that. Okay. Now we're going to jump into the teaching of the essential paradigm really for feminine and masculine is built on the sun and the moon. Okay, and then the AriZal's speaks about this in this teaching that we're going to speak about called the Mi'ut HaYareach, the diminishment of the moon. Now the moon is considered feminine. Okay, now what happens with the moon? The moon goes through a process of waxing and waning every month, right? It waxes and wanes, it goes up and it goes down, just like a woman's body. Physiologically, we have our menstrual cycle, which is a woman in her essence, in who she is, she's always waxing and waning, going up and going down. And women, this idea of waxing and waning and rebirth and renewal is very much a part of our essence of who we are. And that's why as women, we really celebrate the moon. That Rosh Chodesh, which is the holiday of the moon, is something that is a women's holiday, right? Women, you should know that this is a day, it's considered a special holiday for women. You're not supposed to really, if you could avoid doing laundry, I'm very careful about that. Really make it like a holiday for women, to make a special meal, to dress a little bit nicer, because it's considered feminine. The moon is considered feminine. Now, the Jewish people are also, by the way, compared to the moon. Now, why is that? Because again, the Jewish people, if we look at the highs and lows of Jewish history, the waxing and waning, anyone who ever studied Jewish history knows it's full of highs and lows, waxing and waning, just like the feminine. And that's why the Jewish people are also compared to the moon. Now, the sun is considered masculine. The sun represents the intellectual of the Sphero, or and more so the intellectual. Again, there's Chachma, which is really masculine, Bina, which is more feminine, but it represents the emotional Sphero, which is masculine. And again, this is the idea of the masculine, is the idea of more linear, like the sun is always giving out its light. It's very consistent, right? It's always a projecting out. That's the idea of the masculine. Now, the AriZal speaks about, he speaks about a teaching. He goes into the fourth day of creation, where God created, it says, the sun and the moon, equal in size. On the fourth day of creation, if you look in Genesis, it said God created the moon, the sun, and the moon, and they were equal, okay, in size. Now, Rashi brings down, he quotes the Gemara, the Talmud in Chulin, that says that the moon complained, right? The moon says, how could two kings have one crown? How could it be that the sun and the moon, the masculine and feminine, are the same size? How could two kings have one crown? And this moon, the feminine, goes and complains to God. She's very bold. She complains to God. And what does God do? Now, again, there's a lot of parts to this story of this medrash. I'm not going to go into all of it today because I want to again focus on making this very practical. But it says that God made her small. She complained, and God said, "Okay, you don't like this? I'm going to make you small." And that's where the moon was diminished. Now, very interestingly, we think that darkness and klipa, the forces of the other side, came into the world by the tree of knowledge, what Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge. But actually, when we look at the story of the moon, we actually see that all darkness and all klipa, all concealment actually came to the world when the moon was diminished, right? Because before the moon was diminished, the moon was receiving the light of the sun. And there was no night. It was day. It was a 24-hour period of day. But what happened once the moon was diminished, then nighttime came, the idea that the period of night actually came to the world. And what does the night represent? The night represents darkness. It represents exile. It represents concealment. So again, with the diminishment of the moon, also really the idea of exile, darkness, and concealment actually came to the world. Okay, now this sounds like very dim, and it could sound really, dark, and exile is such a hard process, but we have to know that there's hope, because what does it say in the prophet of Yeshaya? The prophet of Yeshaya says in chapter 30, there's a whole prophecy of the end of days. And what does he say there? He says, Vayak or halivana or hachama, that the end of days, the light of the moon is going to be like the light of the sun. So at the end of days, they're going to be equal again. They were both made initially on the fourth day of creation. They were both meant to be created equal. And if they were created equal in the beginning, that's the goal. And again, they're going to become equal once again. Now, a little bit, I want to just touch on this story because it's very, very fascinating. Like, why did the moon complain? Like, what was her objective in complaining? So if you read a little bit deeper into the story, the Medrash goes on to explain that, like, the female, the element of the female, she wanted complete connection. She wanted complete recognition. She wanted connection. And that's really, women in their essence really want connection. She didn't want, masculinity is a world of hierarchy where there's one greater, there's orders, there's the ego that takes over. Like, this one's greater, this one's on a lower stature, this one's on a different stature. The feminine was saying, I don't want that. I want complete connection. I want this place of recognition, of recognizing my strength. But what did Hashem say to her? Hashem is saying to her that you're going to get there. You're going to get there to this place, but I want you to have free choice. I want it to come from within you. She's like, I don't want it to be that you're gonna just, live on with you and your essence and your potential fully and freely, and not be a partner with me in doing that. I want to give you free choice. And I want to give you the ability to find yourself, to understand your potential, to understand your strength from within you. And when you do that work, when you really tap into what is femininity, when it's difficult, when it's challenging, when there's darkness in the world, when there's concealment, when you don't really see what is your mission, then you are going to rise. And so really, again, and this is why I think this is like my passion, is I feel like it's so important for us as women, again, to understand about femininity, to understand what is the feminine strength, what are our gifts, because that was really the whole purpose. The Hashem is like, I want you to have free choice and to choose me, to choose to really tap into your gifts, tap into your potential to really shine. And when you do that, you're going to be partners with me in bringing Mashiach. And that's where women, we really hold space in being partners with Hashem in bringing Mashiach. Now, the AriZal goes on to make a comparison to this story of the sun and the moon, which again, we said that the sun represents the masculine, the moon represents the feminine, to the creation of the first male and the first female, which is Adam and Chava, okay? Now, if we look in Genesis, in Bereshit, what do we see? There's two different accountings in creation for Adam and Chava, for the first man, really for the first man. The first one, in the first accounting of the creation of man, Adam, he's considered Adam with both male and female components. He's one androgynous being. It says in Genesis that God created man in his own image, b'tselem Elokim. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created him. He was one androgynous being, this first Adam, with both male and female components together. And it says that these male and female were together, they were in a back-to-back relationship. They were together like back-to-back, like this, okay? Then what happens a few verses later in the text, in Bereshit, in Genesis, what does it say? It says, it's not good that man should be alone. Lo tov hayot adam levado, eselo ezer kinegdo. I'm gonna make him a helpmate that is opposite him, okay? So now again, in the first accounting of Genesis, it says, Adam is both male and female. He's one androgynous being. In the second accounting, we see this idea that if it's not good for man to be alone and I should make him a helpmate, then obviously that's implying that he's his own separate being, that he's not connected. They're not one-to-one. So what does that mean? Like, how do we resolve these two verses? Again, this is the pshat, this is the text. Like, how do we take this and do we resolve this idea, this concept? So the Medrash comes in and reconciles this. And he says that, again, the first human was in an androgynous being, and they were, again, in this back-to-back relationship. And then what happened? Hashem came and he did what's called a nisirah, which was basically a surgical uncoupling, where he put Adam to sleep, and he separated Adam in this surgical process. And now this first androgynous being, Adam, became Adam and Chava, male and female, standing as two separate, independent entities. Okay? Now the AriZal, again, takes this teaching, this story of the sun and the moon in the Talmud that's quoted in Rashi. And he looks at this story in Genesis, in Bereshit, of the first creation of male and female. And he says, if these two stories are, again, the journey of male and female, the masculine and feminine in the sun and the moon, and then we have the first male and female, Adam and Chava, we can really extrapolate one from another. They're really one story in their essence of the entire journey of the masculine and the feminine. And what really, the AriZal, he defines what does this really mean. And he says that really there are three stages that we're seeing here in both stories. Both stories are really highlighting three different stages. In the first stage, we see that there's an apparent equality. They're both equal, right? We have the sun and the moon equal. We have Adam being male and female together equal. They're one, right? Then what happened? We see this lunar diminishment. The moon is diminished. And what do we see this from the story of Adam and Eve, where it says that man, Chava, actually came from man in the second accounting. It says she came actually from the hip or the rib of man. In other words, it's a sense where she is almost subservient to him or diminished, in a diminished position to him, that she came from him. There's a sense of Chava being in a diminished state from man. But then what do we see? And again, the story of the moon, we see this reattainment of equality. The sun and the moon, as it says in the prophet of Yeshaya, are going to become equal again. And that means, he's saying from that again, the masculine and feminine components of the world and of the two genders and in the world in and of itself are going to become equal again. And really the whole span really of history, from the first day of creation through the Messianic period, is really one lunar cycle, one cycle. Now, the AriZal really identifies, and again, if we were, I would love to do this. This is like actually a dream of mine, and God willing, it will happen. I would love to do a class where we actually go into the 7 stages, because they're very fascinating to see what the AriZal says about these 7 stages of Malchut rising, of the feminine rising. What I really want to focus, because really what's pertinent for us right now, is that the AriZal said, first of all, at the time that he was living, that we were in stage number 6. And that was in the 1500s. The AriZal lived in the mid 1500s. So imagine if we were in stage number 6 then, how close we really are to stage number 7, which really represents the Messianic era, the time of Mashiach. Now, what is stage number 7? Stage number 7 is, again, when the masculine and feminine, it says that Malchut is going to rise up to the place of Keter. They're going to both share one crown. The two of them are going to meet at one crown. They're going to be two perfectly equal, the masculine and feminine dimensions. And they're going to be mutually independent of each other. They're not going to really need each other for their recognition. In other words, it's going to be a complete front-facing relationship where there's going to be no personal insecurities. Women are going to understand their gifts to the world in a very humble way. Men are going to understand their gifts in the world in a very humble way. There's not going to be, again, like this back-to-back relationship where there's this like narcissistic relationship where we need each other to fulfill our needs. It's going to be, we're going to be both fully standing in our full strength, in our full power, really confident of who we are, what is our soul mission in the world. And we're not going to need this external approval that often we're looking for in relationships, where we need the other person to fulfill our own insecurities, our own gaps within ourselves. Now that's in a relationship of masculine and feminine, but I want to bring this down a little bit more because, again, it really doesn't just mean the masculine and feminine in terms of gender, but it also means within ourselves. And I think this is a very important point, that within ourselves, we are going to be in a front-facing relationships with ourselves, that the masculine and feminine dimensions within us individually are going to become front-facing, that there's going to be no part of us that's going to be in the closet, that we're hiding, that is not healed, that needs rectification. We're going to be fully healed. And I really feel like why such a big part of the world right now and the focus in the world right now is healing of our traumas. Coaching, self-help books are so popular right now. Like, why is that? Because we're reaching a stage where we're entering into this time right before Mashiach, where we're going to be entering into this front-facing relationship with ourselves in complete harmony with all the parts of ourselves, in complete healing with all parts of ourselves. And that's why, again, that's really the work that we have right now really is in healing those parts of ourselves that need healing, those parts of us that maybe gone through stuff, right? Traumas, whatever it is, everything that we've gone through, because again, we have to enter this stage right now of this front-facing relationship within ourselves. And that's really the vision that Hashem has of how male and female are going to relate to each other, male and female meaning the genders, and male and female again within ourselves, when we enter into the period of Mashiach. So again, this journey of women is really the journey, again, of the collective. We said that the moon is also representing not only the feminine, but the Jewish people, that, again, we were put into exile. There's so much darkness and craziness out there in the world, but it's our job, again, to choose God. God gave us free choice. He made darkness for a reason. He made concealment for a reason. He made us go through our stuff and our challenges and our difficulties for a reason, so that we should really be able to use that and come to really our essence and who we are and connect to Him with free choice. And then we help become partners of Hashem in bringing Mashiach. So that's really the end of the part that I wanted to discuss about the AriZal's teaching. Again, after this, I want to go very practical, but does anyone have any questions? I feel like this is it's a deep teaching. There's a lot to it. So I want to really open up to questions right now. I haven't even checked the chat box. I don't even know if there's anything in the chat box. I don't see anything, but if anyone has any question, please unmute yourself. Anyone, or want to put anything in the chat box? This was like, I feel like we said a lot.
I have a comment.
Sure. Hey, Rachel. Good to see you.
Hashem. So it kind of goes along with everything that you've been saying with the masculine and feminine rising. And I actually just learned that Tu B'Av is the day where the sun is its strongest power in the sky. And then it's also the time where the moon is the strongest power in the sky.
Wow.
So with both sides rising, this is the day of the culmination of this. So it's that like transference from the sorrow and the negative energy of Tisha B'Av, transforming it to the positive of Tu B'Av.
That's beautiful. Wow. Wow. It's such a power. And Tu B'Av is like the most powerful day. It says that there's like no greater days than Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur. It's like, it's such a powerful day. But that's such a fascinating idea, because what it is, it's really this idea really of the Messianic state, where we said that the sun is at its highest, the moon is at its highest. And it's really a day of celebrating relationships. Again, this idea of the marriage, of the connection of the masculine and the feminine. Wow. Thank you. That's so beautiful. Thank you, Rachel.
Hashem, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? So, okay, if not, let's go on, because again, I want to make this very practical. So now we're going to go into a little bit more of like, what does Chassidus have to say about this? Like, how do we make this, again, understand this idea of Malchut in a much more like practical way? Okay, like how do we really bring this down and really understand what is our gifts, what is our strengths, what's our talents, what's this feminine potential that we're talking about? So let's go into what is Malchut. So again, we said Malchut is like the final culmination, and it's like this cup that holds it all, right? And the AriZal actually says about Malchut, this idea of Malchut, that it has no influence of its own, because it's the last, right? The culmination of all the Sphero, and it has nothing of its own. It's just like a cup. It's a receptacle of whatever is poured into it. It's like this cup that just, it holds, it's a vessel that holds whatever is in it. It's nothing of its own. Now, why is that? Now, this is a really important point, that because in the world, when God created the world, if he just created the world just with kindness or just with severity or just with compassion, the world wouldn't be able to exist. Like, it needed to have, you could say, this balanced light in order to be able to project balance and healthiness into the world. But again, how do we relate to that as women, as the feminine? So the idea really of the feminine is the idea of, we really are able to see things, femininity, in a much more multi-dimensional way. We see things in much more of like a bigger picture, the feminine dimension. Masculinity sees things in much more of a linear way. And that's why it says that that an extra measure of Bina was endowed to women. Bina is actually considered also of the intellectual sphere. It's considered feminine, and Bina is the idea of intuition. Like, what is intuition? Intuition is like you see things a little bit deeper. So where does a woman's intuition actually come from? It's because, again, she's holding it all within her. She has all of these sphirot, all these attributes within her, and she's able to kind of look at a situation and know, like, what do I have to pull out of my hat right now? You know, like, for example, I was just in the store today with my daughter, and she was like screaming in the store that she wanted like a lollipop, you know, and like, it's so much easier to just give her the lollipop and have her be quiet, right? Just use chesed. But as a woman, using my intuition, I was like, she's really pulling things, and I have to really, I felt like she really needed a little bit of gvura. Like, she really needed to know, like, it's not okay to make a scene in the store and think you're going to get your lollipop, you know? So with my Bina, I was able to take from this cup and say, okay, is it chesed or is it gvura that I need? You know what I mean? Or like, a kid is screaming and crying, and we may think we need to punish them, but really my intuition is saying that they really need a hug. They really need love at that point, even though they're acting out, maybe because they need that. So that's where we're able to see things in a much more bigger picture way. And that's, again, this feminine dimension of Bina, which actually comes from the idea of Malchut. That Bina, as the intellectual sphere, representing the higher mother, it's called the nether, the supernal mother, and Malchut is called the feminine dimension in the lower worlds, the actual lower, the nether mother. Now, what else is the idea of Malchut? I really feel like Malchut is like a cup, which is really holding space. That the idea really of holding space for another person, being there for another person, like without even having to say anything. Because again, like when you're with this idea of Malchut is seeing things so broad, and looking at other people and really being able to tune into them without even having to say anything, just to really listen and be there for another person. And we actually see that Hashem is called Hamakom. Hashem is called space, just being there to hold space for people, not to have to like judge them or really, like not judging, but really just being there to understand everyone's unique gifts. Like everyone, all of us are all different with different soul roots, different souls with different missions, different potential, and being able to hold space for that, like this cup, really is also what Malchut is about. Now, again, it's also this circular energy, which is the idea of unity, which is the idea of this oneness and the connectedness, which is again, the era of Mashiach really represents that idea of unity, of this oneness of all people, all nations, all of us. And that's why I love these women's circles from women all over the world, gathering together with prayer and with learning, because again, the unity really holds space for the feminine, and the unity really represents Mashiach. It's really all about looking at us, bringing our energies together, with seeing our whatever differences we all have. We're all one, we're all united, we're all part of one soul, it says. And that's really Malchut. It's like this cup, this unity that just holds us all together. And that's why I love these women's circles. That's why I'm so passionate about them. Now, it's also, now I want to get into this idea of active receiving, just like the moon receives the light from the sun. It's an active receiver. It receives, but what does it do? It receives in order to give. Okay, it takes the light of the sun, it takes the light and it reflects that light back. So it's an active receiver. We think of receiving as something very passive. It could almost have like a very, I would say, negative connotation to it. Like, oh, the feminine is about receiving. It seems very passive, but really, really in its essence, femininity is about receiving in order to give, right? The moon receives this light and it shines the night with its brilliant light. Now, what does that mean for us? Again, how do we make this practical for us? So what does that mean? That's why self-care, I feel, for us as women is so important, because again, we have to receive in order to give. Like as women, a lot of the time we think like, we could go on, autopilot and just continue and go and go and go and go. But the way it works spiritually, right, is that we have to receive in order to give. We have to eat well, we have to exercise, we have to take care of ourselves in order to be able to give. So we can't think that, oh, like as a mother, as a wife, whatever it is, as a friend, we could just be going and going and going and going. No, we have to, in order to be able to give, we have to receive for ourselves. Now, very interesting about self-care. I guess this is something like I've been really thinking a lot about, like what is the idea of self-care? Is like self-care is that we really have to first be able to connect to the self. Like I was speaking to someone and she's really struggling a lot emotionally. And I was telling her the importance of like taking care of yourself and self-care. And she's like, I do a lot for myself. She's like, I always buy myself things. I go for a manicure once a week. I work out in the gym. And I was talking to her and I was like, the problem in the self-care is you have the care, but you don't have the self. That you really first have to really connect to yourself and really, really value who you are. Who is yourself? Like we are like this vessel, this magnificent vessel of Hashem's light. That's who we are. That's who we are as women. That's who we are as people. We are magnificent vessels of Hashem's light. That's who we are in our essence. And nothing in our life can ever take that away. So self-care, we have to first understand what is the self. Like if you're nurturing, you're doing self-care, but you yourself are not standing in your own light and your own magnificence, and your vessel is weak because you haven't really connected to who you are, then it's like, you could say, I heard an example once of like, you're putting money in a pocket with a hole in it. So you're giving to yourself, you're getting manicures, you're getting, you're going to the gym, but it's like that money in the pocket that's just going to fall out because there's a lot of holes in it. And so that's why I really feel like self-care is so much about understanding who we are. And who are we? We are a soul. We are a godly soul. And we have a part of us, a part of our soul that is completely pure, part of Hashem that's within us. And the more that we connect to the self, to the magnificence of who we are and really step into our magnificence, then the more we're able to receive in a healthy way and really tap into self-care in a healthy way. And I really feel there's a lot of like worthiness connected to receiving. Like it was really a lot of my journey. Like it was not always easy for me to receive and ask for help. And I realized like there's so much like worthiness again of like really, again, this idea of the self, of the vessel, of really appreciating of the magnificence of who we are, that even in relationships, like I was speaking to also someone who was like struggling in her marriage and she was saying like, she feels like her husband's trying to give her love, but if you don't feel worthy of receiving love, it doesn't matter how much love someone's trying to give you. If you don't feel like if you're not able to receive, the importance of receiving, it doesn't matter. Again, it's going to be like the pocket with the hole in it. It's like always going to go out. And then you have relationships that are struggling and struggling and struggling. Because again, if we don't, especially as women, if we don't really master the idea of receiving, then we can't even receive love in our relationships. And I really feel like people, especially that were caretakers from a very young age, have a very hard time receiving. People that were in a situation when they were young, that they never really were nurtured and taken care of emotionally themselves, like have a very hard time receiving. So I feel like a very big journey, I feel like, but it's such an important, it's so important because again, it's such an important aspect of the time period that we're in right now of like, and again, I really feel like that's why even like self-care is very much spoken about in the world right now. Like anywhere you go, like any podcast, I was flipping through podcasts and like self-care, self-care, self-care. And I think a lot of people, again, are mastering self-care without the self, without understanding who they are. Now, I feel like another thing that helped me in my journey of really being able to receive was realizing that when we receive, we're really giving another person an opportunity to give. Like, you know, when I realized that, it was like, whoa, it was like a whole shift for me that, again, Hashem created this world. And this is the whole spiritual flow of the world that God is constantly giving to us and we're receiving of his light. And Hashem wants us, again, how do we become partners with God? By giving, by becoming givers. So this idea of giving and receiving is so vital. And we give people an opportunity to do chesed, to actually give when we take, when we receive. So it's a huge, for me, that was actually a very big help in my journey of really trying to heal myself and really come into the ability to be able to receive. Really is like even just that concept of being able to give someone an opportunity to do chesed, to give. Okay, now is the idea of Malchut and the womb. So what is the idea again of the womb? The womb again is an active receiver. It receives from the male, and what does it do? It creates life. It's the most godly act possible, right? So again, and this is really taps into this idea that through Malchut, we are co-creators with God. That we have the ability to co-create our reality and our destiny and our future. We are partners with Hashem. Hashem created us in this world for us to be partners with him. And through Malchut, through this idea, we are able to really be co-creators with Hashem and really step into the purpose of the world, which is really Tikkun Olam, to rectify the world. How? Through being able to co-create our reality, that our reality is not our destiny. It's not like, okay, this is what is meant for me. This is my talent. This is my strength. This is who I am. Hashem's like, no. You have the ability to co-create your reality. It's in your hands. And I think that this is also a really important concept because I know for me, especially when I hit the age of like, thank God, Kanai and I were blessed with a big family, but it was very hard for me when I realized, whoa, like, I'm going to stop having children. When I hit the age of like 41 and I had my last baby, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to have children forever. And I went through like, honestly, it was a very like difficult time emotionally. And then again, I started learning these concepts and I'm like, wait, like women are always birthing. We're always giving birth. We're always creating new realities into the world, newness for ourselves, newness to others. We have the ability, even just through smiling with people, we can bring life to others. We could create life. We can nurture people through, again, through Malchut, through this really internalizing this idea that we're always birthing. We're always birthing. We're always co-creators of our reality. And we're always, as feminine especially, birthing. Okay, now we're going to go into another quick idea. Wow, it's getting late, ladies. This really is like a 4-part series, to be honest. Like I have dreams again of like creating like a series with this, because I thought every one of these is like so huge, but I want to really share like a few more ideas. It's getting late, but anyone has to go. It says Malchut and Shabbos. Okay, so Shabbos again is considered a feminine day. It says that on Shabbos, when we light those Shabbat candles, Malchut rises. And that's why on Shabbos, what do? We say Licha Dodi Likras Kala. There's a psalm that is said on Friday night, actually by another Kabbalist that was buried right here in Tzfat, very close to the AriZal's, which is Licha Dodi Likras Kala. We also say the Eshel Chayil, which is again a feminine psalm that's sung on Friday night. Now, why is Shabbos again a feminine day? Is again because it's the idea of actively receiving. That what happens on Shabbos? We receive blessings from the week before on Shabbos, right? We receive everything that happens the week before comes into Shabbos. We receive those blessings and we project blessings to the coming week. When we keep Shabbos, we have to know we are giving blessings. We're literally blessing our coming week by keeping Shabbat. And that's again the idea of the active receiver, of receiving from the week before and giving over to the next week. Okay, now the next big idea of Malchut, again, is this idea of humility. Now, I think humility is another concept that's so misunderstood in the world, because humility, we could think is termed in Hebrew as like bittul, or this idea of bittul, of like a lack of ego. But really that could have a very bad connotation in the sense that people think of humility as like low self-esteem, but actually really it's the opposite. That what is humility? Humility is realizing that I am a vessel for God, right? Like, again, it's like this cup. It's like just flows into me. Like Hashem is just channeling down, is realizing and seeing ourselves that we are just channels for Hashem's light in the world. That's who we are. The awareness of, again, when we're stepping into this awareness of our magnificent self, of our beautiful self, and that we are in the world by God and for God and with God all the time, realizing that we're just channels of godliness in the world. That is really the essence of humility. And that really is the opposite of low self-esteem. That's the core of confidence. The core of real self-esteem and real confidence is stepping into this idea that I'm just a vessel. I'm a channel for Hashem's light. And Hashem's, that again, when we really strengthen that part of ourselves, which is we are godliness, we are magnificent, we are beautiful, we're standing in Hashem's essence within us, then really, that's the essence of confidence, the essence of confidence and self-esteem. I actually read a beautiful quote. I was listening to a podcast on self-confidence, and it was saying that humility, it's not thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less, okay? Again, I thought this was just like a brilliant quote. It's not thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less. Again, humility, again, is this idea of hod, of acknowledging the source of it all, recognizing, again, that we're just channels for Hashem's light. And again, that self-confidence in its essence is really, self-confidence really is God consciousness. The more we step into realizing that we're just channeling Hashem's light, and it's not, again, thinking about yourself less, it's about thinking less of yourself. It's like, I'm just a channel for Hashem's light in the world. That's really the essence of self-confidence. Now, when we're in relationships with this idea of humility, then it's really not always having to be right. I feel like this is another really big point about Malchut, about humility, is like really being like, we don't always have to be right. Being okay with making mistakes, not being a perfectionist, which is like a big journey of mine. It's like celebrating our differences also. Like, we're both right. We're all channels for Hashem's light. We all do things differently. We all think differently. Our souls work differently. Our minds work differently. And the more we tap into that idea, the more we can celebrate our differences, and the more humility really opens up space for us to be with others in a different way, in a wholesome way, in a more real way, in a more connecting way. Okay, one other, wow, it's okay. A few more ideas I just want to share is the idea of Malchut is also this unification of the light and the vessel, of the merging of the physical and the spiritual, that they really are one in their essence, that physicality and spirituality are one. And again, this is something that we don't see this right now, but with the coming of Mashiach, we're going to see again, that's why Malchut really holds space for Mashiach, that it's a complete unification of the physical and the spiritual in the world, that everything that happens physically in the world is just a representation of much higher things that are happening up there in the spiritual world. And that really represents this idea of the mind, body, and soul connection. Again, making sure that our vessel has to be whole and complete. We have to eat well. We have to exercise. We have to take care of ourselves, because in order for this light to be able to come into the vessel has to be whole. The vessel has to be complete. In order to merge the physical and the spiritual, there has to be a wholeness within it. Okay, now Malchut also, one other point I want to share is represents the idea of speech. Now, again, what is speech? Speech is where the hidden becomes revealed. There's this revelation of what's concealed. And it says actually through speech, God created the world. It says that there were 10 measures of speech with which God created the world. And it says about women, actually it says that there were 10 measures of speech given to the world, and women took 9 out of 10. That women just need to talk things through. That's like the essence of who we are. We need to talk, we need to chat, we need to like share with each other. That's how we really come to understand things. That's how we come to understand ourselves. That's how we connect. It's like I was reading, I think it was like in Men Are for Mars, Women Are for Venus. He was like, advice that I tell men is like, just listen, just learn to listen. Women need to speak and you just got to learn to listen. And it's just true, because we see that in the essence of who we are. It's really important, like connecting to friends, finding a friend that we can really share what we have to say, because that's just who we are in our essence. It's not like, we're not being chit chatty. We're not being like, it's who we are. We need to do that. We need to speak. We need to share. Okay, now I want to wrap this up with, again, the idea that Malchut is Mashiach. That it says in the Sefer Yetzirah that the beginning is edged within the end. That the whole really intent of creation comes into actualization through Malchut. That again, God created the world with the purpose of Mashiach. That was the purpose of creation. And again, what was the purpose also of creation? That God wanted to create a very physical, he wanted to create what's called a dira b'tachtonim, a dwelling place for God in the physical world. Again, this unification of the light and the vessel. Hashem wanted physicality. He didn't want to create a world of angels. He wanted to create a world that was very physical, that we have to clean and we have to cook and we have to do laundry. And especially as women, realizing, again, I feel like that the spirituality and the physicality are one, but we're going to really see this in the coming of Mashiach, because that is the end, again, being wedged within the beginning. And it says that women, we were created the last of the 6 days of creation. It says that, right? Adam was created on the 6th day of creation, but woman was actually the final creation in the process of creation. Why? Because through woman, again, through Malchut, the whole purpose of creation came about. The whole intent came about. So again, the edge being, the beginning being wedged within the end, even within the creative process, the feminine Malchut actually was the final of the creation. And it says that when Mashiach comes, that Nekeva to Sovev Gever, that the woman is actually going to surround the male. So for any of you who've ever been by a Jewish wedding, at a wedding, what happens is that the woman actually surrounds the male 7 times, 7 actually representing the idea of Malchut. And that's the idea that she's going to surround. We're going to see the superiority actually of Malchut, of the feminine, when Mashiach comes. And again, there's so much here. There's like even more stuff I'm thinking now, but I think we're going to end here. I could just like go on and on. There's like so much to share about it. But I feel like as women, it's so important to really internalize this, to really take something home from this, to really say like, I really wanted to end with an exercise. I didn't have a chance to really put it together, but I think we ended with we really spoke about a lot of tools But I think it'd be great to really think of like, we're again in these teachings and in the tools that we're taught here, like how can we really step into femininity more and feel more empowered and more strengthened? And even if it means like, okay, going out and getting extra help in the house, or going out and getting a manicure, whatever it is, because I need to take care of myself, or realizing, this idea of confidence, of really what true confidence is. Like if we take something from here, because again, when we tap into these gifts, we are really become partners with Hashem in the ultimate rise of the feminine, the ultimate rise of Malchut being revealed in the world. So yeah, this is like really, really powerful, powerful stuff. So anyone have any more questions, comments, anything else? I feel like I shared chit-chatted a lot here today. Anyone, anything
I
else?
have one more comment.
Yeah, please, Rachel, yeah.
Just in connection to Hey Av, is that Hey is the 5th day of Av, which is the 5th month. So the 5 is Hey and Hey. So that's connecting the two Heys of the femininity that we were talking about before.
Beautiful.
And then bringing it into actuality. And then that's how we're able to achieve this true unity. We utilize those two Heys, and then we're able to be the true vessels of receiving. And then once we're able to be the true vessels of receiving, we're able to Eshes Chayil Ateret Baila. We're able to rise up and be the crown of the husband and be the crown of the masculinity.
Beautiful.
And
actually, Hey, the 5th Sphero is actually Hod. So it actually says about Hey Av, which is really like Lag BaOmer in a sense, because Lag BaOmer is the idea of Hod Sheba Hod, of this idea of humility, And the Hey Av is the 5th of the month of Av, which is the 5th day of the 5th month, which is again, is the Hod, of like really Lag BaOmer of Av, really is the AriZal, really. And that's why the AriZal and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai were so deeply interconnected. They were so deeply interconnected, and this idea of really strengthening the idea of both of them really represented the ultimate in humility. They were just like complete vessels for Hashem's light. That's really who they were in the world of, just vessels of Hashem's light. So actually after this, I was at the AriZal last night. I actually taught this class in the AriZal last night, so I got to go there for a short time, but I'm actually going to go back there. It was such a pleasure to share this again, because I was teaching at the Kaver of the AriZal. They had a little women's like a little table set up, and there was a lot of chit-chatting and a lot of noise in the background. So I was very excited to be able to share this again in a little bit more of a focused setting. But I'm actually going to be going now to the AriZal again. So if anyone wants to share some names, also you could put in the chat box. I'm so happy to bring names to pray for people. I could print out, I could write down in the chat box after and take names. Yeah, please. And anyone have any other comments or?
Yeah, I want to jump in. I want to thank Rachel, because this came up at the perfect time, because I'm like in a place right now where I'm literally like going to have to learn to receive and accept things and to ask. And like, I'm so far from capable of these things. And I just had like an accident. So basically like I'm non-weight bearing on my left side right now.
Wow.
And it will be for like 6 to 8 weeks. And it's just like, the idea of like receiving is so hard for me. And it's true. It all comes from that like dysfunctional child that like took on too much too early. And like,
yeah.
But yeah, I like jumped in on this class with perfect timing. So thank you, Rachel. You can add my name to your list.
Okay, for sure. Put in your email address.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Hashem should
yeah.
send you really a speedy refuah shalem. And you should just, again, it's an opportunity. Hashem is everything that's challenging. Every time there's darkness, it's always about bringing light. That's the essence really of the time period that we're in right now. So it's so beautiful that you're saying that you could even see the light within it, because again, that's really Hashem is giving you an opportunity to be a receiver, and people are going to have to give to you, and you're giving them an opportunity to give. And it's challenging. It's hard to be in that role. But again, when you see the strength within it and like how the power of it, like it really does it brings light to the situation. So
yeah, like my friend picked up a bed today and she went to my house and she was putting it together, and she was just like telling me how much hard work it is. And I was just like having such anxiety over how much work she's doing for me, but like for my mother for like 3 weeks from now. And it was so hard to like, it's really hard to like expect it that she's like doing this for me and like sort of to receive. It's really hard.
yeah, very hard. Yeah, I don't know if Davina is on here, but Davina, I'm not sure if she's on here. Davina, are you here? You could like unmute yourself. I don't know. But Davina actually was my first, she was here in, she was a student in Machon Alta, and she was like a very big help to me, but it was like those days, it was like very hard for me to receive help. She would come over and she'd like peel my vegetables and help me fold laundry and take care of stuff. And like, it was really hard for me. Like, okay, someone's like stepping into my place and I have to be like, oh my God, I'm going to receive. And I should be the strong one and be able to do it all. And like, but I really like, thank God now anyone who wants to come, I'm very open for.
Can I say add something?
Please, yes,
You're-
Callie, sure.
Yeah, I always, I'm so glad that you were sharing this, because anytime I teach the Sphero, I always talk about that it's always to be in the center column.
Mhm.
And as women, what you were sharing, we always overdo our chesed often, too many times, and forget to align. So when we say our body is out of alignment, or our back is out of alignment, that if we give too much chesed, we're like this. Or if we have too much gevura, then we becomes from discernment comes. So if you look at every time, and if your Netzach is too strong, it's like a dance. When you're dancing, one foot has to go forward, the other foot has to go back, which is hard. Otherwise, you're stepping on the other person. You're stepping on your own self. Or you're stepping on the other person when you're doing the dance. So it's just like seeing the human body. And when anytime you're out of alignment, it's what Sphera am I going, in one direction instead of being, in the center. And I just getting back to the AriZal was such a beautiful thing that I learned that actually from Yerushalayim, from Neely, Salem, I think her name is, that he studied he was very young when he was studying alone the Zohar at the Nile when he was in Egypt. So he's in the Gilgul of Moshe. So I don't know if you mentioned that. I didn't hear that, but the AriZal was supposed to, and you can see the parallels with Moshe and the AriZal, and he is known to be in Kabbalah the reincarnation of Moshe. Moshe, that is one of his reincarnations.
Oh, wow. Wow. Beautiful. Wow. Yeah. Ashley also said there are opinions that say that Mashiach ben Yosef was actually the AriZal also. I don't think she spoke about
Right.
that. Yeah. It's a very powerful day here in Tzfat. Very special day.
Right.
Tivia is here. Tivia is from Tzfat as well. Right. Rachel, also, I love when people here share. We have so many beautiful women with like so many talents here. Rachel, could you share? Are you standing behind some of your artwork? I see like in the background something. Is that your artwork?
Yeah, it's my my background picture.
Oh, wow.
Rachel is like an incredibly
Wow.
talented artist. Like, what do you do again, Rachel? You make artwork from, what is it from again?
So I do laser cut designs. Well, I design mikvaot and sacred spaces, but I started doing laser cut Kabbalistic artwork. And Baruch Hashem, this is the Reish Lamed Aleph Sharim, the 231 gates. It's the 22 letters of the Aleph base arrayed in a circle and connected to each other through lines. It's a deep.
I know. All your
Wow.
is like
Can
incredible.
you share your website? Oh, someone else said that asked it. I was just about to say, could you share your website? Because I love to see some of your work.
Yes, I'm working on my website, but I have an Instagram, so I could put my Instagram on the chat.
Oh, I'm not on Instagram, but okay.
But
You're on Facebook, Rachel, right? Are you on? Do you share?
yes, I'm on Facebook also.
Okay, great. And
Yeah.
I would love to, if I could, I would love to close. If I don't know if I could sing another niggin for the group.
Please do. Yeah.
Okay, since I don't know, this one is something. It's called Shimakoli. It's one of the first pieces that I wrote in Hebrew and English many years ago. But I hope it'll touch your heart because it's coming from mine. Shimakoli. Hear my voice, Shimakoli, show me the way, Shimakoli, open my Shimakoli, answer my prayer. Shimakoli, bless me with peace. Shimakoli, 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 kevenet darki, Shimakoli, uftach libi, Shimakoli, ushma tefilati, Shimakoli, barcheni b'shalom.
Wow. Thank you, Tali. That was so beautiful. Wow. You wrote that, Tali?
Yes,
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Incredible.
and I just wish all of you shalom everywhere, but especially in Eretz Yisrael.
Amen. 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 Wow. Okay. So good. Rachel, you posted your artwork. Good. So I see you posted your website so everyone could check her out. Yeah. It's beautiful, Tali, filled with spirituality from the heavens. Wow. Thank you. Yeah. Like I feel seriously like, whoo, an opening from above. It's so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And somebody asked me about where can I get your past Zoom recordings? So actually it's really interesting. I thought they were all posted on YouTube. We have an assistant that was supposed to help with that. I noticed some of them are missing, but I was going to actually have her post the ones that are missing. So thank you for that push. So now I'm going to, yeah, we're going to put them all up there, but they're in Live Kabbalah YouTube section. Most of them are up there for now. So thank you all, ladies. Thank you so much for being here. And again, like we should just all come in the time of the 9 days where it's a, a heavy time, but again, it's all really about the idea of transforming darkness into light. And we're coming into the time of Tisha B'Av. It says Mashiach is born in Tisha B'Av. And again, like stepping into this time of Mashiach, the era of Mashiach, stepping into real feminine energy and really holding that space to do that inner work, to really tap into that free choice that Hashem gave us, to really step into our potential and really step into our strength and rise and help bring Mashiach. And I can't wait next month to be all joined together. I feel like we're gonna have like a little women's circle section in the Beis HaMikdash together. All of you are gonna be able to come here, unvaccinated, vaccinated, whatever it is, you'll all be able to come here very fast. So good to see everyone. Have a beautiful, and again, anyone want me to put your name in the chat box? I'm going to be going to the AriZal now. So if anyone wants me to put any names in there to pray for anyone, I can look at the chat box after. So please put your name in. And
I put it in your name. Okay.
Good, Dana. Okay, good. Okay, good.
Yeah, please. Probably kind of pair of a Good. Thank you.
I'm gonna write. Hi, Dana. It's so great to have you on. Okay, I'm gonna write down Dana. I'm writing down these names, and I'm going.
Thank you so much. That was really beautiful. And so on time. Oh my goodness. That's always how it works, right?
That's
Wow.
it. Hashem
Wow,
always
wow.
sends it just when we need it. That's it. That's for sure.
Amen. Thank you so much, so much, so much. Beautiful. Thank you.
Have everyone on and sending everyone blessings for a beautiful month, and we'll see you next month, God willing.
Thank you. Thank you.
My love. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.